And thank you so much for agreeing to do this session for ProConnect.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Soumya and the alumni team. So, I'm Venkatarangan Thirumali. I'm an SVC alumni. I passed out in 96 from ECE batch. So, this topic, when I say the art and engineering of blogging, you would be wondering in today's world in 2021, why you should be blogging. I mean, we have all the social media networks, your TikToks, and all the other sites, all the small videos, micro videos, and whatnot, WhatsApps, and all that. There's still value for blogging, and I use blogging in a larger sense, though specifically I'll be talking about some blogging tools, but it's more about writing content, creating your own content. That's the core uh, point that I want to focus on. So that's my blog, venkatarangan.com. We'll cover a bit about my blog and all that as we move along. So this is the agenda we'll cover. Why you should blog. That I think is the very pre-eminent question that you'll all be thinking. Why should I be blogging? Why should I take the time to blog? Then we'll see where to blog, what tools to use, what not to blog, and we'll just see some live things. I'll show my blog and what I kind of do. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible so that we can, few of you have come online, we can discuss some and can take the blogs you follow and the tools that you use if you're writing and what blogs you're reading, you're following and all that. So let's try to make it interactive in the second half. So it's a pretty small talk. It's probably about 20-25 minutes. That's all what I want to take. So the first thing is, why should you blog? Today in all these social media sites, why should you blog? The primary reason that I will say that you should blog. You own the content. You don't own your content. If it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be posting in these sites. You should be posting in those sites because a lot of times that's where your friends, family, your business partners, everybody, or your end customers are all available, or whoever you want to reach, your audiences are there. And today it's WhatsApp as well. So most of the traffic comes to my blog through the WhatsApp that I share in the groups, and they re-forward and all that thing, apart from the Google search. Because my blog has been for almost like 17 years now. I've been blogging at venkatarangan.com. So I just started it as a casual tool, a fascination, maybe 17 years, 2004 timeframe, when blogging was relatively new. And it kind of stuck with me. I found it to be a good de-stressing tool. It became my own diary kind of writing habit. Every day I blog, not compulsorily, but kind of over the 14 years, I've blogged about 3,600 posts. So that's kind of nearly a post every day in the last 14-15 years. So I don't like post everything that I got up, ate, and I'm not a celebrity. Nobody is going to be interested. Even I'm not interested on what I ate or when did I sleep last night. So that's not the point. It's more about the books I read, the movies I watch, and pretty different topics I blog. As I said, I started taking it up as more a de-stressing tool. I want to get something out of my mind and write it. That kind of puts me at ease. And like I always say, the biggest reader to my blog is me. I've read my own blogs, and sometimes I wonder, this guy is smart 10 years back, now he's so stupid. And that's me. So the idea is to more put it, it's a collection of my thoughts, what I read, and I go back to it, refer, or a friend asks me what mic should I be buying, what speaker should I be buying, or the latest book that you enjoyed. Instead of I writing again every time, I just forward the link to the blog that I wrote. So that's the thing I started with. And over the years, it has grown to be doing many other things. I have close to about 1 million users reading my blog in the last 14 years. It's not like I get 1 million users every day. So it's not like popular. It's not a celebrity blog, but I blog. It's kind of the other important things. Like I always say, if you don't post about yourself on the internet, others are going to post about it. So it's going to be more wrong information, misinformation, and all the bad things are going to be posted. If you don't post good, bad is going to dominate. That's like the classic, when it's dark, you light a candle and all that. If you have more light, then darkness goes away. So that's why you should be having your own, you should own your digital footprint. The story of who you are as an individual, as a professional, as a career, whatever it is, you should own it. You shouldn't let others drive it. In social media, anything about you is driven by others. What do they say about you? It could be positive, it could be null most of the time, but as in celebrities we have seen, it would be very negative. That's why you should own your narrative. So when people search in Google, they should, if you're so popular there's a Wikipedia page about you, I think you don't need to blog, then somebody else will blog. So probably Kamal Hassan or Rajnikant or any of the celebrity or even our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they don't need to blog, because there is millions of people who will blog about them or write about them. For everybody else, the digital story about yourself, you should own it. That's where blogging comes into play. And it's your visiting card online. When people, you give a visiting card, either a career or look for a job, or you're starting your career, or it's like your portfolio that you've seen the architects and photographers, they show you a portfolio book. That's what is this blogging today. And we'll see which tools you should blog, what should you blog later, but that's the primary point. And I have found out that it improves my written language. After college, after education, we hardly write anything today. It's all short messages and we don't write anything. Even an email today is more as 2 lines. If you write 3 lines, there are articles which say people don't read. So TLDR. So that's our attention span. But to improve your writing, which is very important, when in a career you want to write your resume, you want to write your business proposal, you want to take a loan from a bank, a business loan, you need to write stories there. So those has to be crisp and it has to be in good language. And you can choose the language. I write both in Tamil and English. It's primarily English blog, but I also write in Tamil. Again, to improve my written Tamil language, it could be any language, it could be a combination of language. See, one thing I will say, it's your blog. So don't worry about a lot of rules. We'll see some do's and don'ts, but predominantly there's no rules. It's your blog. You own the narrative here. So whether you want to mix and match, you want to write in English, Tanglish, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Kannada, whatever is the language, just please blog. That's what is the whole, just keep writing. It improves your social skills. I've got a couple of friends who live close by and one far away. I've got them like pen pals. I've got them through reading my blogs and they've come back and we have become like good friends. So it's also helpful to build your social network and all that. We'll also see what it is not about, but primarily this is it. It's a creative outlet. Like I said, it's a good de-stressing tool. So those are the reasons why you should be blogging. What to blog? The number one thing that I'll say when you are looking at blogging is be original. Please don't be somebody else. People can see through that today. Even in social media, in Instagram, after your fight and post, people can figure out who you really are. So be absolutely original. At the same time, you don't need to open your locker in the house and show everything online. That's not. You can have privacy. You need to have some secrets because it's your private life, but then be original. Don't say something if you're not. If I'm going to be pretending to be a great writer, great movie artist, then I'm going to absolutely fail because I'm not them. Okay, so be absolutely original. Write about topics that you know well, or you're learning, or you're trying to figure it out. All of them is fine, but don't pretend, and be consistent. Again, you can switch topics. You want to write travel today, you want to write movies tomorrow. After 6 months, you feel like writing about books. It's perfectly fine, but then be consistent for at least a limited period of time, so that you will prepare a rhythm. And readers who may be coming to your site, they'll also know what to expect. Of course, you'll be sharing these links on your social media sites and all that for people to come and see. Most often when you send a link to a blog, people may not be coming unless the topic is really catchy, but that's okay. Keep blogging. Search engines will find you. And it's all, like I said, I'm the biggest reader of my blog. So you can keep reading your own blogs as reference. And if I go back to a blog that I wrote 12, 13 years back, I wonder that my thoughts have changed over the years. I pretty much blog on movies, books, travel, events, and things. So this is my blog. I don't want to give you a tour of my blog. It's simple. You can all go to venkatarangan.com. But predominantly, like I said, there are about 10, 12 topics that I write about. It's in 2 languages. And I do a lot of professional speaking engagement. So the blogging also is an avenue. The first link you see is speaking. So this kind of becomes a visiting card to people who are looking at my executive coaching programs or professional speaking. They can go and see the earlier talks that I've given. So it kind of becomes easier for people to refer, and then I blog about many things. Okay, so like I said, about 3,300 posts is what I've written. This is WordPress that I'm using. I'm self-hosting WordPress, which we'll come to in a bit. So that's how I blog. And the most important thing because I'm using a platform like WordPress, this I'm kind of self-hosting myself on Azure, but you can use WordPress.com as a service. The idea is this content is owned by me. I can download this content. I have copies of this content, 3,300 posts. That's about 5 to 10 GB of content I've got over the years. All this content I own. So there is nobody else. I can have search on this. You go to Facebook and try to search your post you posted 6 months back or 2 years back. You'll know how difficult it is. That's where you'll figure out. Most of the time you'll say, oh, 6 months back I posted this link. I can't find it. That's the problem with social media. Because Facebook don't want you to get out of their platform, whereas in your blog, you own the narrative. Again, these are some of the comments I've got. Like every 2 posts, I get a comment, and that's about over 17 years. So switching, like I said, what you shouldn't be blogging. Don't blog if you're trying to expect to get rich. This is not YouTube where you'll get lots of advertisements. You can put advertisements on your blog, but I don't. Because I'm not blogging to make money. And you're not going to make money unless you're having hundreds of thousands of visitors coming every day to your blog. That's not going to happen. So don't expect to get rich. But if you're able to build an audience, and you're also creating content in YouTube or the other social media platforms, your blog kind of becomes a repository of it so that you can own the content. Like I said, if YouTube decides to delete content that you posted 10 years back, you'll be without a copy. So your blog can become the repository. That's also the biggest advantage. So if you're trying to be a creative professional, you should own your blog. No hate speech, absolutely, unless you have a strong reason. Don't post hate. Like I said in my blog, my kind of mission is not to say harsh words. That's not the point here. We are not a political party's mouthpiece or speaker or trying to hurt somebody else's sentiment. That's not why we are trying to blog. We are trying to be as professional or as civil as possible. So that's why we are, as professionals, as engineers, we are trying to blog for that. So don't post any hate speech. Don't think that it's not a social media where people are going to forget. It's going to live. Probably it's going to live if you're posting on a site like WordPress.com or Medium or any of the other sites. Even after your life, hopefully these blogs are going to survive. So please don't hate speech, because somebody is going to search and find about you. The whole idea we want to build a blog, like I said, is to have a positive message about you. So why do you want to create a negative image about yourself by posting hate speech? Today, say if you're, I'll pick up easy example, nothing against these companies. You are a Microsoft fan. Why you want to post something about Google, and 10 years down the line, you want to apply to a job as Google, maybe as Google CEO. This blog that you posted is going to come back and be onto you. And just deleting the blog is not going to go away, because Google and Web Archive hopefully would have taken copies of it. You can go back to my blog as it was in 2004 by going to archive.org and typing my blog name. You'll be able to see it. So again, even if you deleted it, it's still be there. Internet remembers everything. So I don't personally post on politics, caste, or nationalism, because 3 topics predominantly can have hate speech. You get into hate speech and people, you versus me, and these are 3 topics I have absolutely no idea about. So why do I write about things I don't know? I know a bit about movies, I know a bit about travel, about books I read, about management, about engineering, technology, software. These are a lot of things that I know about. Why should I write about things that I have absolutely no idea? Again, lastly, which is common sense, your blog, unless there is a very valid reasons, you're a doctor or medical reasons or anything like that, there is no reasons for you to get into profanity or any of those genres. What are the tools you can use to blog? So we covered what you can blog, where I blog, and all that. The tools that you can use, Medium is a good site to start with, but that has become too commercial right now. But you can start with it because it's one of the most easiest tools out there. You can just go and create an account. Of course, Google has got blogger.com. It doesn't look as modern as the other platforms, but it is there. Zogo also as a platform that is again free. You can blog. There are many platforms, but I will suggest platforms which allow you to export your content to whatever platforms. And again, as engineers, I have some suggestions. The thing I will recommend is start with WordPress, because that's what I'm familiar with. It's a very solid company that backs it. 30% of the internet runs on WordPress.com. So it's a very good platform. It's not the most user-friendly, but then we are engineers, so you should be very comfortable with WordPress. I've used a WordPress which I'm self-hosting on Azure. because I'm familiar, but the best is to start with this, or GoDaddy and a lot of other hosting providers also give you a very cheap plan to run WordPress at few dollars a month. For a personal blogging, even the free WordPress is very good to start with. And all of this allows you to export your content. So you start blogging in the free in WordPress, you can go to any of those paid versions, or you can switch to any of those sites. You can take your content in XML or JavaScript and they take it to any other platform that you want. So that's something you will want to. Even Google allows you to export your content from Blogger to any other platforms. So that's very important. As I said, you are blogging because you want to own your narrative and you own the content. WordPress has multiple themes. It's very user-friendly. In 5 minutes, you should be able to set up your blog and start blogging. There is apps in every platform, iOS, Android, and so on. There are sites, if you are more software inclinated, you want to do it yourself, kind of DevOps, kind of your own stack, you want to own it. Then there are platforms like Ghost, which pretty much gives you the entire stack. You can write it locally and then push a GitHub and GitHub push, and then the content comes online. That's also a good, again, like in this, you own the content. It's your markdown file or anything that you own. It's also a good platform. There's many others. I just showing ghost.org. There's also this, a couple of my friends are using GitHub to write markdown, and GitHub pages is also a way you might want to write your blogs. It's not very user friendly, meaning for you, but then if you have the technology chops, you can use GitHub pages and do it. It's absolutely free. You own everything. It's a complete pipeline of publishing. You can own and tweak the way you want. We'll switch gears. The last thing is about Google Analytics. This is about my blog. WordPress also gives its own analytics. My blog, as you can see, it's about 1.4 million page views I've got over the years, nearly about 3/4 of a million users have read it over the years. Again, please don't go by these numbers. Even if you're getting 10 users, 20 users a day, that's good enough. I hardly see these numbers other than taking a screenshot of this for talks like this, because there's no ad revenue that I'm worried about, or there's no following that I care. I write it for my own pleasure and to build my brand. Anybody searches my name, I want my blog, the narrative that I want to say, come online. That's what it is. I'll also say why students and people who are starting your career, you should blog after we go through this. So this is WordPress. This is the SEO things. If you are more worried about growing your traffic, you can do SEO optimization. A lot of plugins are available for WordPress to do it. This is a tool that I will highly recommend if you're starting to blog. Grammarly, Microsoft also has a tool called Microsoft Editor. If you have an Office 365 subscription, you can do it. It helps your grammar a lot. I've learned a lot by Grammarly to correct your grammar, your mistakes, simple mistakes that we do. This is a free plugin for Google Chrome, just Grammarly. Most of you would already be using it for your emails and social media. So that kind of concluding my talk. But before I close this, let me give you some few specific pointers for all of us engineers. So if you're a software developer, for example, most of your resumes, I think all your resumes today need to have a GitHub URL, because even for internship, I'm helping a friend for a fintech startup in the US. We have taken even some SVC students who as interns. The first thing we look for is go to their GitHub page, go through the source code. I ask them to explain the code. That's what pretty much most of the people who are recruiting you, either as interns or full-time job or even campus placements, are going to look at. So GitHub has become a prerequisite. And just by putting it in GitHub, people coming to GitHub is going to search, but you're not going to be visible on the rest of the internet. So when you blog, and you won't be able to have a full narration on GitHub, a blog to go with it, where you link your GitHub for the actual source code and write everything else in the blog, kind of is a much better combination. So people search, they can come to your blog, they can read, they can post comments. So all that interaction can happen here. Of course, if it becomes purely source code discussion, that can happen on the GitHub. So you can give in your resumes, both your blogging and your GitHub. So people will get kind of a full picture about who you are, what can you do, what's your portfolio. Again, going back to the photography example, this becomes your portfolio that you can showcase to people. And if you're in any of the other engineering stream, again, the same thing holds good. You're an architect. Where do you showcase all your diagrams, all the designs, all the projects that you have executed? Blogging becomes a very, very good place. Instead of giving them a YouTube channel or a Facebook page, this is a good repository for you to do it. So you can follow me at these URLs at Venkatarangan and Venkatarangan.com. So I'll open the floor for questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Venkat. Very informative. Guys, are there any questions? I've posted one question on the chat window.
Okay.
But I think, Arvind, I saw you come off mute. You have a question?
Yeah, Venkat, thanks so much for taking the time. This was very, very helpful. I've myself been thinking about, hey, what do I write about? But there's always this constant inertia, I can never get over it. So, but perhaps today is the time.
Yeah, I'll give you a tip. If that is the inertia, you're already writing in social media, I think that becomes easier. Just go to social media, kind of probably keep it as a weekend assignment. Every day it becomes, see, I'm very disciplined when it comes to writing, blogging, because right now I don't have a full-time job. I'm kind of in a long sabbatical for various reasons. So I have the time. Even when I used to work a full-time job and I had a business to run, somehow I have the discipline to write a blog, but I understand a lot of people, you won't be able to do it. So the simple tip is, if you're already in social media, you're posting in Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, kind of keep it as a weekend assignment where whatever you posted in the last 6 days, what do you like, or what still has value, copy it from a social media and put it in the blog. Okay, and the reason I say copy it, do it manually, there is a reason for it. There are, of course, tools like Ifit and a lot of other social media also allows you, or blogging tool allows you to pick it up from your Facebook and LinkedIn. I don't want that auto posting, because then it doesn't give you an opportunity to tweak your content. Social media is like instantly you think of something, you want to blab about it, you write it and you forget it. But when you want to put it on the blog, you want it to be a little bit more professional, a little bit more staying power for a longer duration. So go in the weekends or whenever you're comfortable and copy paste the important content into blogs. So that also gives you an opportunity to keep expanding over a period of time.
The thanks, Venkat. The other question I had is, if you have clients, right, that you serve, and in a particular region, or if they say you're employed, you shared some tips around, what not to blog. My constant worry is, how is this going to be perceived? If somebody from, a link with my client reads this, or an employer reads this, and so on and so forth, right? Then you're constantly thinking about, and toning down your message, and you finally don't write about something that you want to write about.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts on that in terms of how we stay, how we can write about things we want to write about while kind of navigating these?
See, it used to be a problem about, I get your point, kind of self-filtering, self-policing ourselves. Okay, how is this going to be perceived and all that? That's a problem. But I think in the last 4 or 5 years with social media and WhatsApp, we kind of have come across that. We have learned, because every day we read horror stories about something on social media going wrong, right? Even the celebrities, even the biggest PR teams are goofing up on something. I think we are kind of more mature, more intelligent about it. So if you apply common sense, I think the filtering is a lot more easier now, because subconsciously we are learning what not to say a lot more before. The tip that I will say is, that's why I said, stay on the topics that you are comfortable with. If you see key things, like if you avoid politics, caste, and fundamentalisms, these are like key things. If you avoid, pretty much the harsh topics, you are already kept out of the emotional topics is out of the window. So you don't need to worry. The most important, I'll be worried if you're employed somewhere or you're running your own company, is about non-disclosure that you will write in your blog. That will be my biggest worry. Okay, because when I ran a business, I never wrote anything about my business. And I never wrote my company's blog, because I write anything that can be perceived as the CEO's comment on something. It was a private limited company, but still, I didn't write anything, because that may become, the CEO has wrote something, I don't want to join this company. So that's saying, today those systems are a lot more polished. So keep a personal blog. All this recommendation I'm talking about is for a personal blog. When it's a professional company blog, you need to have a PR team, a marketing team, and there are experts and there are guidelines. That's altogether a different topic.
Very helpful, Venkat. Thank you.
Okay. Today, a lot of CEOs, it becomes a necessity. If you go to funding, even as an angel funding or a VC funding, if you are not known, the VC searches your name. If you don't have much presence online, they will find it difficult to form opinion about you. So having any presence is good, and I prefer that presence to be blog than social media.
Thank you.
Okay, Soumya, I think you have a question. I'll answer that before anybody else has any other questions. Creating articles directly on LinkedIn, perfectly fine. Like I said, sometimes a lot of small content that I write kind of originates from my social media post, and then I copy paste into write it longer in the blog. So that's perfectly fine. But I will more filter things that goes into LinkedIn. If you ask my workflow, if I were to, generally I write it in my blog also, but if I were to think I thought kind of originates for me as a Twitter or a Facebook post, which I write it into a blog post, which I still like is very good, then it kind of goes into my LinkedIn as a LinkedIn article. And especially for you people, entrepreneurs who are running your own business, I think LinkedIn should be your kind of your finished product, because you want to be seen as your best. And that time you're also wearing the avatar of your company. You're a CEO or an MD or a CTO or whatever it is. So you have to be more sure about LinkedIn.
Thanks, Venkat. There's one raised hand, Praveen. Praveen, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm outside Venkat, so I'm off video. It's a question in a lighter vein. Where does your Mango Idiot blog come into the picture? Why did you start talking about movie reviews, and how does that fit in?
Okay, I write a lot about movies. Initially, I picked it up as a topic which the content creation becomes easy. Movie reviews, like all of us have a review, have an opinion about a movie. So I started it more to write more. And then over the period, I've seen a lot of my friends and family say they like my review. There are like people who say the movies that I like, they like, and it's more to share. I don't have any great plans. In between, I had a plan to make it as a separate property, mangoidiots.com. Even now, there is a Twitter handle for Mango Idiots. There's also another one, not lighter, a smaller reason, which I'll go into that a bit later. So I was thinking about creating a separate brand for my movie reviews. Then I decided not to do it because it required a kind of investment, and I tried to work out a business plan for all that, and I decided not to go about it. But I still continue to write movie reviews within my blog itself. The reason why I had a separate brand also to do with Facebook required at one point you have a separate page so that you can do paid advertisement, paid promotions of your post. And at some point, Facebook, about 5-6 years back, stopped showing your own post to your own friends unless you start paying and your account becomes a paid account. So kind of these are SEO things, forget about, I'm not an expert there. So, and Twitter also had a paid program, which you could only do if you have a separate page or a separate handle. That's why I wanted to create a separate. So those entities like Mango Idiot still exist. At times I do run paid campaigns for getting some review traffic to Mango Idiots. But that's with Mango Idiots. Probably at some point I will still reactivate it. There is thousands of movie reviews I can create a brand out of it, but that's not happening now.
I have another question.
Yes.
How do you promote your blog? I mean, you say you write on Venkatarangan.com. The blog there has come out of perhaps some posts you have done on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. And you said that's the crux of the idea, and you write it as a long form blog post on Venkatarangan.com. But how do you drive traffic to Venkatarangan.com? Who's voluntarily going and reading it?
Okay, there are two things. Of course, I didn't want to get into the actual process of blogging. You all are familiar. And my own workflow, maybe we can discuss that if there is interest. The way kind of I also blog about events I go. That is something I found. There are some topics over the years I found out which kind of gets traffic. There is a couple of events that I attended of people, celebrities, of things, which get a lot of traffic. I go to those events. Say, for example, for the wider audience, it could be a TIE or a NASCOM event I went. We all take notes. And that I found out we never go back to that note that they give in the conferences, which looks like way back when physical conferences used to happen. We throw it. All of us, I'm sure Praveen has thousands of those small handwritten notebooks in his house, which we never refer. And these are some good wisdoms. Somebody, say we sit down on Dr. Abdul Kalam's speech once, and he had some fantastic ideas that he gave. We write it, but we never go back because the next day we get into our job and we are busy. So I started all taking it down early days of Nokia Palm Pilots and Nokia Communicator. I found out that where do I put it? So my blog became a natural place. If you go to events in my blog, there are hundreds of events I have gone. I have written those my notes that I took there. Of course, I polished it a bit, but it's not very, if you start writing, all of us do take notes. You spend about half an hour in polishing your notes that you write. It becomes for posterity and you're sharing to a lot of people. Okay. I wrote of Arun Jain of Polaris fame. I went to a full day workshop about him. He gave fantastic information and knowledge on what to do on a particular topic on design thinking. My notes from that event, I posted it as a long, about 10, 20 page article in my blog. And Arun Jain read it and his team forwarded, and I got a personal note from him saying this is good. And there are many other incidents like that. So that kind of gets traffic. So this is a topic because if you, from a SEO point of view, there is Arun Jain, there is Polaris keyword, and the topics that he talked about, people search for it, my blog comes because nobody else writes about it. And I acknowledge it's not about their content I'm trying to plagiarize or anything. And I don't write the full thing. If you can still, I wanted to write more as a teaser for people to go into Arun Jain's event, or people share in TIE or NASCOM. Those are public content. I don't write verbatim everything. It's the notes that you took. So that is kind of one way you get traffic. Travel is another. I've gone to some offbeat places that people search for. That again gets traffic. So I found out that the topic that are least written, if you are writing about it, you get traffic. There is no rocket science. You also write about Anate movie, you're not going to get, because today I think there are 1 million YouTube channels which write about Anate than the 1 million viewers we have got. So if you're writing content that is unique about an experience you've got, traffic will automatically come.
No, but you promote.
Back, found about me and a couple of other influencers and asked us to come and stay and blog about it. Okay, I didn't get, I wish I got paid by them, but I got a 2-day stay in one of their 5-star properties and get to enjoy the facilities. I'm not complaining. Nandan Nilekani, when he wrote his book, I got a copy. A Canadian writer sent me his copy that he wants me to review his book. So those are goodies that I enjoy. One thing I don't do, I didn't get into detail. I have no advertisements on my blog. I don't do any paid links, referrals, sponsorship. Every week at least I get something. Of course, the monies we are talking is very low. It's not attractive. But still, I don't want to take any money. These are reviews. These are about products that I bought and I enjoyed. So that's my principle. Of course, you can have a different opinion about whether you want to accept money, whether you want to do advertisement. That's a personal choice.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
So, yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Jaya, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I wanted to know from the personal perspective is one that you've spoken of. But if it was from if I'm working for somebody and I'm writing blogs for them, as part of my work, I regularly write articles. But how do you make it really, there are sometimes very mundane topics which I don't know whether it's off the, discussion point of view or not, but there are some mundane topics which I do not know much to discuss, beyond a point. How do you, maneuver the words around and, talk about it more in different perspectives?
Let me say a disclaimer. I'm not a corporate marketing person. There are experts, even in the forum, who can talk about it better than me. But the point I will suggest is, again, don't try to pretend. If it's your corporate blog, ensure your company is not pretending something they are not. We see today, we search for something. Let's give an example. You are looking for an Android developer, a company to develop your Android application, right? A very, very simple topic. You search in Google, I'm sure in Chennai, you'll have 1 million companies doing it. In NCR region, there will be 100 million companies. Every house will be an Android developer, etc. But when you see a site, even though they may have a lot of blogs and a lot of content, they come in search engine, but you click on them, immediately you know they are a small company. Okay, how do I know? I don't know that behavior economics, but I know you have a gut feel they are not large. They are pretending to be somebody they are not. Okay, so what I will suggest, play to your strengths. You're a niche company, you're a 4-member company, a boutique firm. You're a cake making company, you want to have a blog for it. Just 4 people, 4 women, it's a women entrepreneurship, it's a community program you're running. Be authentic. What can you write about it? It's about coming to work being difficult. You have to get your kids ready and then come, send your husband, take care of the house. That's an experience, right? That only you can write. If I write that, I will be pretending. But if you try to write something, in my experience, you will pretend. You won't come. That I think today people are very mature. And if you give it to the millennials, one test I will say is show it to your nephew, cousin, who are millennials. In few seconds, they can tell you your content is not genuine. They have some antenna. Social media, they can scroll an Instagram page and say this is photoshopped or anything. They are born digital. There are, of course, a lot of books on how you can do digital content and all that. I will say, identify what is the core of your company, play to your strength. If you're writing for the CEO, that's one of the worst job you can do, because CEOs don't say anything because they don't know. They are the most confused lot. I have been a CEO. So the thing about CEOs is we have absolutely no idea about the business we are running. Okay, it's the people who run it. We just pretend and we be the apologies to all the CEOs. But then talk to them and get the human being behind the CEO. If you can get that, then your blog will be good.
Thank you.
And I'll also give you a tip. Go to all these large corporate sites, go to their professional blogs, and ensure you don't do any of those things. They are the worst. If you go to Microsoft blog, technical blogs are good, but their marketing blogs, or any of the large company, not necessarily Microsoft, any of the Indian companies who just blog for the sake of it, you can all say this is being written by a PR firm. If you do an NLP analysis on it, it will be all nonsense noise words. There will be nothing of substance. It will be just a SEO collection words. Even if you write 4 paragraphs, it has to be original for your company. That's what I will keep. And it's difficult. Okay. I think there was one other hand by somebody else. Yes.
Hi. It was actually lovely to see Jaya. I think I'm seeing her face after 20 plus years. So, hi Jaya, nice to meet you and nice for this event. And thank you, Mr. Venkat, for being here. So my question is around how do you stand out in this ocean of creators? Every day the number of people who are creating content is only increasing.
Correct.
So how does one stand out? If you could provide some insights from
Okay.
your
Let me try to make it I'll try to be specific. Can you tell a bit about yourself? What do you do, if you can?
Well, I mean, you just said that CEOs don't know anything, so I don't know if I should explain what I'm doing.
No offense, I just meant it to be on a lighter note too, for talking about the content perspective.
Well, fair enough. So after SVC, I went to the US, did my master's. I lived and worked in banking and finance. I lived and worked in the Bay Area and worked in banking and finance. Then I moved back to India. I was the head of product for PayPal India until last year. I built the team here, and from India, I expanded the company into Asia Pacific as well. And last year, I have quit and co-founded my own startup. We're a year-old influencer marketing company.
Okay, fantastic. So if with this background, again, just throwing up some ideas for you to take, with your US-India experience, try to see whether you can do a compare and contrast between the financial market there. Not many people are writing. I haven't read articles which compare and contrast at a slightly higher level, at a more a conceptual level, or you can drill down and be a very practical level. How investment small investment happens in the US, small investments happens in India. Try to compare best practice in a very layman fashion if you can, or you are more technical, you can operate at, choose your level where you want, at the expert or at the novice. Either of them is fine. The problem is being stuck in between. then you can't get an audience because the reader won't be able to identify who you are targeting.
Right.
So choose that and try to write your own experiences saying, I tried these, this is the way I invested in the US, this is the way I invested in India. The same technique, Warren Buffett has this rule. How can you make that rule for India? There is I found some value investor, I think a Twitter handle in Twitter, value investor or value investment something, by somebody in India writing it. And I think he kind of he follows the Buffett rule specific for India. Quite interesting. So that's probably could be a kind of a take that you want to do. And you have a rich experience in PayPal and others. How managing of teams is different in India than in US or the same. Those could be topics. I'm sure if somebody interviews you, you'll have 100, 200 articles worth of content to say. That can be a starting point. And you don't need to think for it, right? You can just think of an episode and start writing it. And if you are a storyteller, fantastic. I can't tell a story. So my son can come instantly make up a story and say, I don't have that capability. But then that's a good way to write. A lot of people have taken these management or heavy topics, technology, and try to write it through stories. That's again a good set of blogs I have seen. Those are things you can start with. And the best thing is just start, even before you position, just start writing. It's your blog. As a web.rk will keep a copy, but then only if your blog has got sufficient traffic, it's going to worry about it. So till then you can just post, and you don't like it, you can delete it. Internet doesn't care for it.
Right.
So you start writing some 5, 10, 20 posts and share it to your friends. They will say which post is good, and you can form some opinion and all that you can do, some bouncing thing. Okay. There are out of 3,300 posts, I think only about 5 or 10. Praveen is here. I can't lie, then he'll tell my wife. My wife liked only about 5 or 10. I'm being very generous for the audience.
Okay, your wife seems to be your harshest critic.
You can say that way too. He says I'm just wasting my time.
All right, I take the point on topic and choosing topics that are, as you said, personal and somewhere that you have additional that the writer can bring an additional context to. So yes, I understand. What is your experience with frequency of the posts? How frequent do you post?
You want to bring an audience, then frequency is important, but then frequency is up to you, and it is also up to the content. But if you want me to say a thumb rule, I say if you're not posting weekly once, then it's not like active. You're not focusing. You're not taking the time for it to talk about it, anything worthwhile. So I post a week. I post once a day in the frequency, but then I operate in a different frequency. But then once a week, and then you can make it every couple of days once, and then you, based on the content, you will kind of find your own rhythm. Right. If one post a day is, I think, if you're writing a very specific topic like the one which we discussed for you, it becomes too much for you to create and too much for the audience also to take, unless there is a valid reason for you to do.
Right. Makes sense. And I think I'll go back to the question that Soumya had asked earlier, which was around driving traffic. Yes. So how does one build an audience? What has your experience been?
Okay, see, my blog has been completely organic. Other than Mango Idiots, when I try to get some paid advertisement for that episode, everything else has been completely organic. If you go into the analytics, we can see like 70 to 80% of the traffic to my blog comes through Google searches, because Google knows my blog exists for 14, 15 years. I built a kind of an history with Google, it knows, and all that stuff. And rest of that comes from people who have subscribed to my blog and through social media pages that I've created, etc. And that's kind of, it takes time. So the best way is to start writing. Once you've found your rhythm, then create your Facebook and other identity. If you're not going to be doing it commercially, you're not looking at trying to get business through it or advertisements, then you can just leave it organic and let it take up, because there's no point in you spending money to get up traffic to your site where you're not making money. Right. Doesn't make sense. You cannot sustain it for a longer period of time. But if you are looking at banning, then you have to go through a traditional lead generation, and all that mechanisms exist for getting the traffic.
Right. So specifically with backlinks, what has your experience been? Has it worked for you?
today those are a bit outdated. Those don't work anymore. I don't give backlinks to anybody unless there is value for my audience. A lot of people write and say, oh, I'll give you a link, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Those used to be very popular 10-15 years back. Nowadays Google doesn't give you that kind of weightage to that anyway.
Okay.
So a lot of the old SEO techniques are outdated now. So
Right.
the lead generation is more, you'll have to now more slog it out, have a professional agency work on it, have it's more a science now than anything else.
Right. Right.
I
And
will suggest
Google updates their algorithms like thrice a day. So
correct. That's also
that's the frequency in which they are updating. So
correct.
what we're talking about.
But if you build credibility and longevity, and Google, any algorithm will obviously give you a score for that.
Right. What we are seeing is that long tail keyword search is where blogs lead to the maximum traffic. Have you
Yes.
noticed anything along those lines?
Yeah, like I said, on topics, like there was I forgot the temple near Chennai. I forgot the temple. I went there. It's not one of your popular temples. I went there. I wrote a blog. That's kind of like every week it will be in my top 10 page, even though it's like 10-year-old article.
Right.
Okay, and suddenly there is a topic I wrote about. Say, I once took a photo with very simple thing with music director D Imam, and I went to a movie. That's it. I've written a simple blog about it. Any news about Imam, people search, I guess that page kind of pops up. Again, it's not like millions of people come to that page, but in my blog top 10, that's what I care about. It comes up there. And Tamil Nadu government free textbook, I wrote a long post about it, how you can read and all that. Even now, most of the time people go to that, and I kind of had to keep updating that page because people go to that and say this link is broken. Boss, that's not me. 10, 15 years back, Tamil Nadu government textbook, that was the link. It's not today. But I kind of updated. It's my blog. I kind of put a date, kind of a log saying this got updated now, and I write a like track changes. I kind of do it manually to say. That's more because I'm more systematic. So that's it.
Got it. Got it. Last question.
The idea coming back to traffic, the thing it kind of worked for me is go after those topics which others are unlikely to write. If you're a boutique firm, small firm, you are anyway small. So try to play to your strength. Write about topics which nobody else will write. If you're going to write about investment, Paytm, I think every Economic Times onwards, everybody is writing. But then you're going to write about a stock that I have absolutely no idea about. Maybe if I search, your blog will come.
Right.
A lot of people if Medium is a good platform for you to go and do a bit of research. Even WordPress.com as a thing, if you go and search those people who are being followed and liked, you kind of know most of the time those content are interesting content that you would like to read yourself. There are also a lot of writers now who have figured out who are able to, like Pallavi Iyer has her own blog. She used to be a famous writer, and I like her books, and she used to be NDTV correspondent and all that. She has now, I think, given up her full-time job and become a freelance writer, getting revenue through her blog. And it's pretty good. And it's kind of a newsletter come blog. I kind of like it whenever she sends it. So there are people like that I follow too.
Okay. I mean, that would be a great thing to know if you could give us some pointers on who are, well-established bloggers that we could
follow my Twitter. I'm sure I would have posted, and even in my blogs I would have referenced. Anything specific I can actually.
Can you post your Twitter handle as well, Venkat?
Same, Venkatarangan. My name is my email ID, my Twitter ID, my Facebook. Everything is Venkatarangan.
You got an early.
You got the spelling right. Venkatarangan. A lot of people say I've heard my names pronounced under different ways, but nobody has pronounced it correctly with the correct spelling. There is an A between Venkat and Rangan. My father,
Very authentic.
He told me, he named me Venkatarangan, and he doesn't know how the A came in between.
Yeah, it's the story like Kamala Hassan
That's a
never
blow.
got stopped for the random security check until he changed his name to Kamal Hassan.
Okay.
The extra A helps. This is more authentic.
My thing, probably in school at 6th standard or 7th standard when they want CBSE, I think I liked it, I wrote it, I don't know. Because those days the birth certificate doesn't have the name, right? It just says the parent's name. And okay.
All right. Last question, and then I'll yield the floor, Samya. So my last question is the balance between image and words. What has your experience been in, viewership, readability of of the post as well
See,
as
that should be
the caption.
for social media images help, because when you share it, Facebook kind of shows that nice thumbnail. WordPress also shows, WhatsApp shows that good thumbnail. So that is important, but that opens up its own can of worms. If you are doing those for movies, I try to take it from the official site or official Facebook. I try not to take it from newspaper sites and all that, because then it becomes plagiarism, and they also give you a do not take down notice to Google, and all that can happen. So ensure, or you go to Pixabay and kind of sites where you get free, or of course Wikipedia is there. Try to take where you have the copyright or it's copy left. Or if you're a creator, nothing like it. Create your own visuals. If you're creating your own, nothing like it. Then do as many images as possible. But then the whole idea of blog is to be available on Google. So even if you have visual, write it down. So a transcript of it better be in your as in textual format. Short videos work beautifully because that kind of gets virally transmitted in WhatsApp.
Right.
So that can be the trailer to the longer post. And the people don't read your blog. So like I said, my wife doesn't read my blog. She says I write too much. But that's the audience we are getting into. But then Google like it, they come, you can give us, you can come up with your own. The idea is it's your own blog. You can come up with the format that kind of works for you. A short snippet can be on the top, kind of a summary that alone people can read. If they are interested, they can read the longer form. Those are things which you can work out.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Soumya.
Thanks. Anybody else has any other questions or comments? I've shared the LinkedIn.
It was a very insightful session, especially on the fact that you're talking, especially that the fact that you talked about, creating your own niche in the area that you are, rather than just going with the mass.
I have a request to all the SVC alumni here. Please do leave a comment on the group. We are trying to hold these sorts of Pro Connect sessions twice a month. And please do look out for future sessions. We invite SVC alumni, accomplished people in certain topics to come and talk to us about, their area of expertise. So thank you so much, Venkat. It was a wonderful, wonderful session and a very interactive session. So I should also thank all the audience for asking all these lovely questions and engaging everybody. So fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, before you drop off, please do click on that link and leave your comment for Venkat. That would be really appreciated. And like I said, watch out for future sessions as well.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yeah.